Well, the holiday season always makes people warm and fuzzy, but there's some problems that persist all year that get highlighted around this time of the year, and we're going to be taking a look right now at emergency food pantries and the fact that they're struggling. So our first slide right here, food insecurity in New York City. In 2013, cuts were made to the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP. Think of the old food stamps, EBT, all of those food assistance programs. Funding has been cut. $540 million actually in lost benefits for purchasing food. Now that trickles down to some 161 million meals lost since November of 2013. Think of 50 million meals a year that just don't get eaten because there's not enough money there to buy food. 79% of providers are reporting an increase in visitors to soup kitchens and food pantries, no doubt as a direct result to the loss in funding to SNAP programs. Now, if we look at food insecurity in the strictly Brooklyn context, Brooklyn happens to be most unable to meet demand right after our neighbors in the north in the Bronx. So we're number 2 in having demand for people who need supplemental nutrition. 49.23% of agencies surveyed didn't have enough food to meet that need from individuals showing up at their doors. In fact, 43% of an increase in employed individuals being served. That means people who go to work every day still not having enough money to feed themselves and their children. Speaking of children, 25% of children right in Brooklyn are living in food insecure households, which means that they are depending on the people who we're about to see to provide them with the assistance they need just to be fed. So this is our look at emergency food pantries and how they're struggling in the A block.
So with funding getting slashed for federal programs like SNAP, Brooklyn food agencies are serving an increasingly critical role in feeding the hungry. In 2016, the number of those in need kept rising, and many of the soup and food pantries in Brooklyn were unable to provide enough meals. As we dive into this holiday season, organizations like the ones our next guests represent are seeking solutions and calling for legislative change to prevent further shortages.
We want to welcome back to BK Live both Joel Berg, the CEO of Hunger Free America. Nice to see you again, Joel.
Good to be here.
And also Dr. Melony Samuels, the executive director and founder of the Bed-Stuy campaign against hunger. Appreciate you coming back.
Thank you.
And we're also happy to welcome a first-time visitor to the show, but not to the new to the network, Alex Rapaport, the executive director of Masbia Soup Kitchen Network. Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.
Thank you all for joining us. Joel, let's start with you, since Hunger Free America just put out that survey. A 79% increase in demand we're seeing here. What are some of the reasons behind this increase in people who are going to food pantries and soup kitchens?
To be precise, 79% of the agencies said they were feeding more people. And we're starting to see a slight leveling off with the improved economy. But the most startling findings we discovered that there are 500,000 adults in New York City who are working, but still struggling against hunger. We are facing an epidemic of the working hungry. Now, hopefully this will improve a little as the minimum wage increases to $15 an hour over the next few years. But right now, if you're working hard and playing by the rules, as my old boss Bill Clinton used to say, you're just not earning enough to feed your families in many, many cases here in New York City. As they say, the rent's just too darn high.
Yeah. Dr. Samuels, I remember from our previous conversations, this is a trend that you saw coming because it was bearing out with the people who are coming to both of your organizations.
Right, and the increase in working poor is startling. It is said, like Joel said, over 500,000 individuals that are working. And so what we're seeing now is two things. You're seeing where a lot of working families are coming in, single moms working, definitely coming in, but we're also seeing an increase in seniors. And so who are on fixed income is now saying that they cannot afford. Again, we go back to the fact that there's an increase overall in rents in our city, in Brooklyn especially, and so people are impacted by that because of a lower income or fixed income or no income. And so because of that, our lines continuously grow. As a matter of fact, last month, Thanksgiving, which is, as you know, it's like the zenith for food pantries, we saw approximately 8,000 more individuals than we've seen the year before.
8,000 more. It's
More.
not like that was your flat line. It was
Right.
the increase.
Right.
Wow.
And so that's the need. And it's continued to grow that in that fashion. So there's definitely, we have to find an answer.
Alex, who are you seeing most affected by these cuts?
Obviously, it's all over the place. There are some specialty programs for seniors or for children in school. What we see is all the people who are left out of these special programs, and what we serve as the average person who needs that emergency meal that day. It's just what it is, what it's called. It's the emergency, and we have seen our lines going up constantly. We're a relatively young organization, and we never had a stabilization period where it constantly just keeps on growing. Our lines just keep on growing, and more pantries are kind of going out of business, so to speak. Less organizations are ready to
Meet the need.
ready to meet a need, and some who even had stopped running their pantry. Wow. So we now, the last couple of weeks, we just saw a huge increase just because a neighborhood pantry closed down, and we got all the people from there. And then we went from doing 500 families on a Friday to 700 families on a Friday.
Joel, are we seeing this just here, or is this happening all across the country?
Unfortunately, this is a trend across the United States. We're the only industrialized Western nation on the planet that has this high level of hunger per capita. It's because our economic and political policies are fundamentally broken. Nationwide, 42 million Americans. 42 million Americans live in households that can't afford enough food. Now, sometimes the elite media, not you guys, but other people try to minimize that. Oh, this is some little poor people's problem. 42 million equals the population of California and Kentucky combined. And nationwide, 13 million American children live in households that can't afford enough food. That's why we say the answer isn't charity. These charities do incredible work. You should absolutely go online right now and donate to Hunger Free America, the Bed-Stuy campaign against hunger, Masbia. Do it now. But that's not the only answer to hunger. We need more jobs, living wages, and a safety net like other industrialized, Western, frankly, civilized countries have.
Well, we know that our president-elect is hiring a lot of folks and bringing new people into his experiment in governance. So you guys are on the front lines, and I wonder if you could think of any real-world plans that would make our government more accountable, when we know like 73% of funding for nonprofits comes from everyday people. It's not from the government and top down. So what plans would you want people in power to enact, or ideas for them to hear, since you've got the experience? Joe, Alex, you want to start?
I would say the first thing is don't cut the tax deduction for charities. I mean, even that is on the chopping block. I mean, but that's generally speaking. But obviously there are issues that we need. Obviously, the best way to help people for now, the quick fix is more food stamps, not less. The quick fix would be getting people employed, higher the minimum wage is a very quick fix, and obviously investing in the economy and regular people. That's what it is.
And we have to look at the fact that there's far too many cuts overall, and every year we go through a lot of advocacy, which should not be. It should be understood now that hunger is real in America, in New York City, and the length that we have to go through to the level of advocacy on this topic should not be there. It is understood that we need to work together to do something. Whoever is in office, this is real and it needs to be addressed immediately. But the level of, we are worried tomorrow that this program might be cut, this funding might be lowered, and then you're wondering, what are you going to do? How are you going to turn families away? I don't think that any executive director or CEO should go to bed wondering if there's going to be a cut, or how deep is the cut, and the constant fight. Like there's a lot of federal and city programs, discretionary funds. Those things should be allocated to emergency feeding programs, and of course SNAP is our first line of defense. That of course should be taken care of. We should find ways of getting families to access SNAP, but hunger on a whole should not be where each individual or each head of the emergency feeding program, we worry too much.
Yeah.
We worry, I'm being honest, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, wondering how we're going to do it. That should not be, not in this country. Take me back home. Take me back home to Jamaica.
Right.
But wait, you mentioned Jamaica. I always see these videos on Facebook. They pop up and show France has made it illegal to have food waste, and they go and they collect foods, and there's a program in London where they have a whole store with stuff that would have been discarded from other things and wound up in landfills. Can we innovate or technology or just common sense our way out of hunger?
We can do some of that, and I was in the Clinton administration the chief federal official in charge of reducing food waste, and that's a really important thing to do for the environment, but we need to understand that's not going to end hunger. You mentioned that a lot of money for the nonprofit sector comes from private individuals, but that's the whole nonprofit sector, including museums and universities, for social service organizations that help the poor. First of all, tax deductions are government money, and second of all, we're very dependent on government grants and food. So I come back, unfortunately, like a broken record. Innovation's important, technology is important, but the single most important thing is to do what's previously worked in America, because we almost ended hunger in America in the 1970s, and what's worked in France and Scandinavia is more jobs, higher wages, and an adequate safety net. 2/3 of the people who are hungry in America are children, senior citizens, and working parents. We know how to fix this problem. Just as the Exxon pays people to pretend we don't know that global warming's happening and we don't know how to solve it, there are plenty of people on the right, big business interests, who spend a lot of money to fake this controversy. Oh, we don't know what works. We know exactly what works. If you double someone's wages, they're going to have a lot more money for food and they won't be hungry. It's really that simple.
Right.
And let me just add, a lot of families online want to work, those who don't have jobs, and they want better jobs. So it's not, we don't want to leave with the idea that everyone on the line is just there are loafers. They're just looking for a handout. That's not true. You have beautiful families, families that have city jobs, families that have been to college. So it's not that the families that we're looking at are families that are just, let me just go to the pantry today. We're talking about individuals that are rushing to get in just in time, that just in time before you close, after work. That's the families we're looking at. So we want to bear in mind that, yes, the holiday season is coming, but families who are working want to work. Jobs. That's what we're saying. Unemployment, the more we have unemployment, the longer the line goes. And when the income is really minimum, it's very difficult for families.
So until we get all of that going, Alex, what are you doing right now on the ground to combat these problems?
So I would just venture to say, just to pick up on that point, we don't need an excuse to share, or we don't need to kind of pick on people who we care to share with. We should just share unconditionally. And that's what we try to do. And what we try to do to make ends meet in situations where we get these surprise growth of demand so quickly, we try to, all protein gets bid as one. So what used to be a little bit of beans and a little bit of chicken and a little bit of tuna now becomes the cheapest protein goes. Like, kind of, we try to really ration within our purchasing power to have to stretch even what we got to kind of get people to go buy their emergency rations so they have more. And it's not always the best type of food or what we would have want to put in the bag, but it's something that at least could go longer with it.
We've got a little time left. Alex, tell us how we can all get in touch with your organization and give, if we can, this holiday season.
So sure, there's masbia.org, which is masbia.org, and there's a donate button there. You could learn a little bit about the program, and you could sign up to volunteer as well. That's about it. It's just a big sharing program. Someone who wants to share with a neighbor who doesn't have, you give a little donation.
All right, what am I supposed to do with all this money that's burning a hole in my pocket, Doctor?
Well,
Exactly, different situation than me.
we got a large donate button, but you just again go back to bishkanyc.org, which is BSCAH-NYC.org, and press that button, and there's so many choices.
Yes.
And I'm looking for your click.
All right. It's a big button. Behind it. Well, thank you all for coming, Alex. Thanks for the ideas and innovation and common sense ideas about getting people fed tonight and forever.
All
We
right,
appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you both.